So, let's talk about the Sonic 3 movie. I'm a huge Sonic fan. If you've been on this channel for any amount of time, you know I'm a huge Sonic fan. Love Sonic, been playing Sonic since the 90s, and after seeing the third movie, still a Sonic fan, but I think out of the three movies, I didn't like this one the most. If I had to rate them from an enjoyment standpoint. Now, I want to start this off by saying this isn't a bad movie, but I think because of my expectations for it personally being so high, because it's clearly playing off Sonic Adventure 2, I had the least amount of enjoyment playing this movie. If I had to rate my enjoyment, it'd be 2, 1, then this one. And it's almost like a Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT kind of thing, where I think the highs of this movie are the best out of all of them. So, before you really get into this, let me just say there's going to be spoilers, obviously. If you don't want spoilers and you're just going to want to watch it yourself, I suggest go doing that. Pause this video here now and come back in the next couple hours after you watch the movie. So, when comparing it to like that Dragon Ball reference, right? I think so when I say that, I mean like the highs of Dragon Ball Z are like some of the peak of enjoyment for me in anime. However, I think the troughs of Dragon Ball Z aren't all that amazing. How there's a lot of episodes that are just kind of side filler that isn't all that great, and getting away from the meat and potatoes that is Dragon Ball Z. Whereas with Dragon Ball, I feel like there's a consistent level of quality all the way through. This movie felt to me as it wants to pay homage to the thing it's representing, but doesn't want to go far enough with it. You need to come into this movie with the mindset that if you're a Sonic fan, especially a fan of the more modern Sonics with it comes to storytelling, because of the amazing Ian Flynn, who clearly knows what Sonic is, you're going to be upset. If you're a Sonic Adventure 2 fan, expecting certain things to happen, and they don't happen, you're going to be upset. If you want to get the most enjoyment out of this movie, what you need to do is come into it with the mindset of, this isn't for you as a Sonic fan. This isn't for you as a Sonic Adventure 2 fan. This is a kid's movie using the framework of the Sonic Adventure 2 game. Now, I don't want to just rip on it the entire way through, mind you. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's not. It's at least a 7, 8, which is still pretty good. And box office wise is doing amazing. I'm pretty sure it's doing better than Mufasa, actually. But that's not really that surprising. But yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. But as someone who's, again, been part of Sonic since the 90s, who was with Sonic through through the really good and really enjoyable Sonic Adventure time, even though the games were jank and had their own issues, they were still fun, to the bad downdrop of quality in Sonic 06, to the slow rise of quality once again in Generations and Mania, to the writings of the IDW comics. I've been with Sonic all the way through. And because of that, I'm disappointed that this is not just a Sonic movie for the fans itself. It's a movie for the same kind of kids that we were back in the day, who were just getting introduced to Sonic. It's fine. It's serviceable. But I spent the entire movie wanting more. Talking about like some good things that are about the movie before I start kind of like not ripping into it, but talking about my own personal issues. Unironically, I think Keanu Reeves did a good job as Shadow, and as the longer the movie went on, the better it sounded to my ear. I'm not sure if it's because he started voice acting Shadow better, as opposed to just doing his voice but gravelly. But by the time I got to the end of the movie with him, he sounded a lot better overall. I'm not sure if that's because I'm just hearing him more and it just becomes natural the more I see his voice on Shadow's body, or if it's a case of he was actually just improving his vocal performance throughout the movie. Either way, Keanu Reeves' Shadow, great. Just about every scene where Shadow is on screen, absolutely flawless. In fact, so much so that I actually think they did his story better here that they did in the original game, right? So in the original game, Shadow it goes rogue and goes evil because he forgets that Maria was like, give them a chance to be happy. And it's like, how? How did you forget Maria said be good to people up until Amy was the one who talked to you? Why? How did you forget until that one trigger? As opposed to in the movie, what they do is he's understandably upset because they kill off his sister effectively. Like, that's going to lead you to trauma. And that's going to lead you to being really fucking pissed off. So, I actually, yeah, overall, I think they just did his story beat of why he was angry better here than they did in the original game, surprisingly enough. All the action scenes of it were amazing. Case in point, they found a way to make the Akira slide cooler. As crazy as that is to say, the Akira slide, the iconic Akira slide, is actually even cooler in this movie with how Shadow does it. I won't spoil how, but it's just, yeah, they found a way to make the Akira slide at least 20% cooler. What are some other good parts about it? They do start adding in some like classic Sonic music. Like we got Eggman, IGGM. Is it MAN or MEN? Either way, you know what song I'm talking about. Eggman's theme from Sonic Adventure 2. We do get Live and Learn. Again, spoilers. And I'll get to some of the problems with that later on. What else is good about the movie? Jim Carrey is still a really good Robotnik. And he was also good with Gerald Robotnik. But I'll talk about some of the issues I have with that in the later parts as well. What else is good? The animations look really good. And the fact that Jim Carrey is playing two characters and they are physically touching a lot of the time and it doesn't look weird is actually really goddamn impressive. They did an amazing job with the art. There's two after credit scenes, and one of the after credit scenes I have to give major props to. So you know how if you look at Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles compared to like their in-game models, they're like pretty close, but it's not quite on the mark. I feel like Knuckles is the closest out of the three compared to how they look in game, with Tails being the second closest and Sonic being the farthest from how he looks like compared to his modern iteration. But it still looks like Sonic, mind you. It's just you can kind of tell it looks different proportion wise. In the after credit scene, one of the two after credit scenes, we actually get to see Metal Sonic, and holy shit, Metal Sonic looks like he was just straight ripped, copy, and pasted out from the games, his 3 models from the game, directly into the movie. It looks beyond flawless. It looks like a one-to-one copy. If you can imagine what Metal Sonic looks like in game, he looks like that on the movie screen. It's kind of actually impressive how good they make it. And we also get to see Amy. We don't get to see her talk, but she comes in and bashes the Metal Sonics that are attacking real Sonic. So I'm guessing we might get a Sonic Adventure movie plotline. But again, I'm not upset at the movie itself. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but that's kind of where my like praises of the movie end. And now I gotta kind of start ripping into it. I guess not ripping into it's not fair. It's more so being disappointed in it as opposed to being like outright upset. So this entire movie is just a Sonic. If you've played Sonic Adventure 2 or seen a Let's Play of Sonic Adventure 2, you know the plot line of this movie. It damn near follows the same beats for it, damn near beat to beat. Now, mind you, it's missing some characters, like Rouge doesn't pop up. You don't have Knuckles looking for the Master Emerald while Sonic and Tails do their thing. There's not a scene. There's kind of a scene where Gunn thinks Sonic is like on the wrong side of things, but that doesn't really get played into or focused on more than like a single scene that I feel like was kind of not really necessary. But yeah, if you played Sonic Adventure 2, you know the plotline of this movie. And my biggest gripe is I wish they were more honest to it. Okay, I have to say once more that this movie was not made for me. It wasn't. It was not made for me as a longtime Sonic fan. This movie was made for kids. And as such, they kind of like treat the audience like they're idiots in certain regards. Like there's a scene early on into the movie where Sonic is like talking to Tom in his old cave, and it's like, it's hey man, it's really good to see that you're still the same person in here, and directly points to his heart. And then when Sonic and Shadow have their super fight, we do get to see Super Shadow. It looks just as amazing as Super Sonic. One second. But yeah, when we get to see their super fight and Sonic like knocks the superpower out of him and he's about to kill him, Shadow's like, "All right, kill me, hit me right here." And it's like, "Oh, yeah, you spend the entire movie like with Sonic kind of sympathizing for Shadow, realizing that the only reason that he's evil is because of like his situation. But the fact that he had him like literally a scene closing in on him pointing to his chest, exactly like Tom did at the start of the movie, it's like kids aren't stupid, man. I know we have this mindset that like the Gen Alpha kids are going to be dumb because of brain rot on computers and iPads and all this stuff. But you don't have to treat them like they're unintelligent because that's what they're doing. The fact that they had to like directly point out, literally point out the almost same exact scene from earlier in their movie, it kind of just like is almost an insult to the kids' intelligence, you know? And then you have things like, okay, so you're effectively copy and pasting Sonic Adventure 2's thing. Can you take all of the bits as opposed to just some? Like the movie takes place in Japan. Like the first third of the movie takes place in Japan, right? So upon hearing that, I thought at the end of the movie they were gonna do the whole iconic "Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog" line at some point. And even more so because when they're flying over Japan and then jump out or about to jump out, Sonic does his literal line where he's like, no in-flight movie, no snacks. Man, this is lame. I'm out of here." So quite literally the first thing he says in Sonic Adventure 2, but then we get barely any more references to that in that regard. Like why? Why is it just only taking certain bits and pieces instead of fully embracing what they're copying? There's a scene where they're at the Chow Garden, obviously, which is, an homage to the actual Chow Gardens from the game. It looks good, and it's not an actual, like, area, like, in the heavens or the Hell Realm or, like, a Island Paradise area. No, it's a little cafe where people are dressed up as chows, and it's a cute little homage thing. But then, for some reason, they play a Japanese rendition of ABC, the Michael Jackson song, instead of playing the Chow Garden theme. And it's like, but why? Why are you not embracing what people want? Especially if you're trying to do things that only people like me are gonna know about, you know? I mean, the characters are all fine. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles just play still the same. I'm still iffy on Ben Schwartz as Sonic. It sounds fine, but it's like how anytime you hear any Batman that's not Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, it's like, this is fine, but it's not Kevin Conroy, you know? So, yeah. But I think, like, the biggest flaw when it came to characters was Gerald Robotnik. Mind you, I absolutely adore Jim Carrey as Ivo Robotnik. I think he is great. I think he captures the zaniness of Robotnik and his insanity of Robotnik. It's a little too much in regards of like over the top in certain regards, but it's still a fun thing overall. I didn't like how Gerald Robotnik was just another Ivo Robotnik, right? Because at the end of the day, it was just he was Gerald, instead of being like a scientist who cares about people but goes dark and evil because of what Gunn did to his granddaughter, of literally killing her. He's just another Jim Carrey Robotnik, which again is fine with one character. And it wasn't like I wasn't having fun watching him on screen. Unironically, that both Robotniks had this dance scene in a laser hallway, and it's like, okay, this is dumb. There's no need for this. There's absolutely no need for this. And it's just kind of showcasing once more, this is a kids movie for the kids, but it's fun overall. But I really just liked how Gerald Robotnik was like a more down to earth, understandable foil to Robotnik, where it's like he was a good person, he was a good doctor, and Maria's death was the trigger that made him go, I want to kill everyone. It didn't make him go crazy like Robotnik levels of insane, but it was a case of I hate humanity. I hate everything. You took the thing that's most important to me, so I'm going to take everything from you. And while that still is prominent, he wasn't jokey like Ibo is, you know? So I was kind of iffy on Gerald in the movie at all. I'm still not a fan of like the human sections and human parts added to the movies. I really wish we can just get one where we just go away from them and just focus on what we're here for, Sonic and Friends. But I guess again at the end of the day, still a kids movie. Maybe I can't complain. My biggest issue with the movie though is after 3 movies, we are finally finally getting some iconic ass Sonic music, right? We're getting songs from the actual games and they only play them from anywhere to 5 to 40 seconds. And it's like, but why? You have an entire section where you're playing Don't Stop Now that goes on for almost 2 minutes, an entire dance scene around it. And yet you can't give us more than 5 seconds of Eggman or only 40 seconds of Live and Learn? Really? Really? Again, what's the point of putting them in there and not fully embracing everything that's fun about Sonic? Why do some like movie producers or like directors seem to be like afraid of just embracing the source material sometimes? I don't get it. There's probably something out there that can explain it. But it's just like, why are you holding back? Why are you being so reserved about this? Go whole hog. We don't get Final Hazard or BioLizard, so we don't get Supporting Me BioLizard. All we get from BioLizard is that we have like a 10-second so there's a scene where Maria and Shadow are watching a movie, and then we see it's called Beware the Alien Freak, and on screen we see some Godzilla looking kaiju monster that has tubes and the giant pimple on his back. Clearly an homage to BioLizard and Final Hazard. But why wouldn't you include some kind of section with them? Come on, I just want you more to embrace the stupidity of this franchise is what I'm saying. But again, I understand this movie is not for me. This movie is not meant for the 30, 40 plus year olds who are playing Sonic in their childhood and in their early teens and who have this love for this character from his highs to his lows. 1 second. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's meant for a new generation of kids. Quite literally just young children who have a fairway love for Sonic, and it might blossom into the same kind of love I have for Sonic, you know? Or any of us big time fans have for Sonic, which might lead to them playing the older games on the Genesis, the older games on the GameCube. Speaking of which, because of this movie, Sonic Adventure 2 on PC has actually had its highest peak player count of like 1,075, I believe. Let me check. Come on. You can do it, PC. I believe in you. Yeah. So, oh no, actually even higher than that. So when it first came out almost 12 years ago, its peak was around 632. And then around the time of the Sonic 2 movie, where people saw Shadow at the end, it peaked at 668. And ever since that, and ever since the release of this new movie, it has now peaked at 1,194. So clearly people wanted to play the game that was this going to be the formula for this, right? But yeah, there might be a bunch of kids out there who, after seeing these Sonic movies, want to go and look at the other games, the discography, the music, the IDW comics, and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's not a bad movie, but you have to turn your brain off. Don't look to this movie like a Sonic fan, like an old school Sonic hardcore fan like me. Don't come to the movie like that because you're going to be disappointed and you're probably not going to have as much fun with it. Like, I personally had fun, but only when I kind of turned my brain off and was like, all right, don't compare it to the original story. things are going to be missing that you want because of that. So just turn your brain off and just enjoy it for what it is and what's on screen. A rather enjoyable little kids movie. But yeah, I mean, there's worse ways of spending 2 hours, and there's our two after credit scenes with the second after credit scene showcasing that at the end of the movie, after Shadow and Sonic are able to deflect the laser that was about to hit the planet, and Shadow gets blasted. It turns out he's still alive because of course he's still alive. You don't just these movies way too much money to kill off a fan favorite like that. That wasn't gonna happen. And I am interested to see what they do with Sonic 4. And but if they continue with the same trajectory, I'm just going to have to accept that we are never going to get the peak of what I want. And I just had to accept that these are kids movies. They're kids movies. They're kids movies. They're not supposed to be thought-provoking or anything like that. They're just supposed to be a fun thing that you can take your kids to. So treat it like that. You'll enjoy it far more. Either way, I want everyone out there to have a good morning, evening, day, or night, wherever you're at. But for right now, I am out. Later.